Hey everyone, MLive's Brendan Quinn here in Kansas City on the Wednesday before Michigan's Sweet 16 matchup against Oregon. This is David Mayo, MLive columnist, local hero to all. David,
my friend here.
This is an exceedingly interesting matchup, as Michigan seems to constantly run into, because they can play so many different ways, and all these different opponents have their own little niche. I don't know if Michigan has a niche other than the fact that it can play a bunch of different ways. So what is your early read on this thing?
How does a 6'7" guy guard DJ Wilson?
Yeah, that's a problem.
I just don't know. I don't think going small against Michigan, which is exactly what you would expect to be able to do against a team that plays a couple of 6'10", 6'11" guys. Right. You would, if I'm just looking at the roster and coaching to that opposing roster, I want to go small and make them go small, because every time you go small, you make the other team go small. It's not going to work against Michigan because they got 5 guys and they're starting 5 with handles. They can all put the ball on the floor. They can all face it. They're not going to worry about getting guarded by a 6'7" guy. They'll back him down. I don't know. You know, the injury for Oregon is just it's. I don't know how they got this far, to be honest with you. Losing Boucher, it's a big loss, and I don't think they have enough ways to play with Michigan.
Well, part of the reason that they got by is, frankly, Iona, Rhode Island were their first.
You're a 3 seed, you get rewarded.
So, that's certainly a challenging road. Rhode Island was nothing to sneeze at by any means, but if you look at what Oregon has done along the way, they have not beaten a team playing at the caliber of Michigan right now, basically since a win over Arizona on February 4th. All their wins since then have been mid to low level Pac-12 schools, followed by Iona and Rhode Island in the league. Michigan, meanwhile, comes in here like a buzzsaw, having beat 3 NCAA tournament games in 4 days, teams in 4 days at the Big Ten tournament, followed by Oklahoma State and Louisville, rocking and rolling with confidence. I just don't know how replicable what Oregon's been doing well is going to be in this game, whereas Michigan seems to have a million different things it can do. They're just such a matchup problem, but you wonder, is there a day where everything can go wrong? I think is the biggest question for Michigan right
Or
now.
Is there a day when just everything goes in for Oregon? They do have shooters.
Right.
That's the one thing. That's the X factor in the game. From Michigan's perspective, is that Oregon is very efficient offensively. They can shoot the ball. They can fill it. They can take tough shots and fill it. So you hope not to catch them on a night like that. But against Rhode Island, I wasn't terribly impressed with the Rhode Island game. As I watched it, I'm sitting there thinking whoever wins Oregon-Rhode Island couldn't have beaten Michigan this weekend, being last weekend. Certainly if the game was played then, I don't think either one of those teams beats Michigan. And I just, unless Oregon just makes a lot of shots, shoots 55, 57% from the field, something like that, I don't know. I don't know that it has enough ways to cope with Michigan's diversity.
Well, here's the thing. They're going to look to run. Oregon's going to look to run on makes, misses, turnovers, rebounds, anything they got. They're going to look to get up and go. Michigan, meanwhile, I think people have this misconception that it's a slower team. That's really not the case. Michigan does look to get out and go. It's just, if it isn't there, they pull back as quickly and as wisely, probably, as any team in the country. It's one of the reasons they have very few turnovers. They don't force the thing. I just wrote, when the door isn't open, they don't try the window, right?
Yeah.
they go to their half-court offense, and that's the thing that they really have, that in a game like Oklahoma State, in a game like Louisville at times, that when the game does start to get up and down a little bit and the opponent starts to feel really comfortable, if they are a team that likes to run, Michigan can kind of slam on the brakes and say, oh, you're getting comfortable here, now guard us for 30 seconds. And that just, it's a killer. It's a backbreaker every single time. And I think that is something that really will play a role in this game tomorrow, is Michigan's ability to, when they need it, go to the half-court offense and find success.
Absolutely. But they will look for opportunities to run offense against defense that is not set when they have the opportunity. I think for years there's been a misconception about just what you talked about Big Ten teams getting into the tournament and looking strictly to run half-court offense. They get into the Big Ten and they grind each other to powder, and they don't want each other to run. So the running games are shut down largely in the Big Ten. You've seen it with Michigan State a number of times over the years where people are convinced they just want to grind in a half court, when in truth they get in the NCAA tournament and they're running like crazy. I think with the exception of Wisconsin over the years, Big Ten teams have gotten into this tournament and looked to pick up the pace. And as you said, they're so well grounded. They have such of a foundation in a half-court game. You can always rely on that if you can't get a mismatch in the transition game. They always have that they can fall back on. But I think Michigan would love to get up and down a little bit with Oregon tomorrow. I don't think they have any fear or concern about that necessarily at all.
Yeah, the only thing is just identifying your defensive matchups on the other way down. But Michigan's proven. I think they've gotten a lot better at that in the last month. And speaking of matchups, we talked a little bit about Dylan Brooks. He is kind of the big question mark as a 6'7" guy who can do a million different things. The conversation this week has been Irvin or Wilson. I think Irvin's the better matchup, in my personal opinion. What I think is going to happen, though, based on my conversations today in the locker room, was it'll be Wilson on him when there's two bigs on the floor. So when it's Wilson and Wagner or Wilson and Donnell, Wilson will take Brooks. When Wilson slides to the 5, Michigan goes with 4 players with Robinson at the 4. Irvin will take Brooks in those scenarios. Now, that could obviously change over the course of the game. I believe that that's the game plan going in.
I suspect you're probably right. Brooks, make the other guy, if you have an effective scorer, what's the best way to slow him down? Make him work on defense.
Yeah, right.
Make him work on defense. I mean, I think Brooks might have a bit of a mismatch if Wilson's on him. Certainly he's going to have a quickness advantage when he's facing the basket. Michigan's help defense will have to be attuned to what's going on in those situations. But if there's a mismatch one way, there's a mismatch the other way. He can't possibly guard DJ Wilson inside. I'm going to work him like crazy to where he's huffing and puffing before he ever takes a shot. I'm going to make him work on a defense.
Fair. And either or could be good. I mean, you're talking about. I like the idea of Zach Irvin because I like the idea of the coaches being able to go up to the senior and saying, "You want to leave your mark on this game. Like this is how you leave the mark. Your offense is coming. Everyone's getting their stuff on offense. This is how you can win the game." I like that aspect. At the same time, DJ Wilson is the guy who walked into a halftime locker room not too long ago and said, "I want to guard Caleb Swanigan." And did a really good job of it. So.
And, well, as you said, though, that this only applies when Michigan's playing its traditional starting lineup, unless Wilson shifts to center. If Wagner and Wilson are on the floor, I don't see how Wilson.
Okay. Last thing before we get out of here, briefly, it's been a different guy every game. Who's the guy tomorrow for Michigan if they win?
DJ Wilson.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's in a favorable matchup situation unless Oregon really does something to force Michigan out of itself, to force Michigan to go small. As I already told you, I don't think they will. I think Wilson has a matchup advantage that Oregon can't really account for. They can bring the big kid, Cavell Bigby Williams in, but he's, we discussed earlier, he's going to give them some fouls. He'll give them 12, 15 minutes of 3 fouls, and there'll be a physical element coming off the bench. But for the most part, Oregon's going to have a 6'7" man on a 6'10" man. I don't know how that's going to work.
I'm taking Derek Walton. That Walton kid, he can do a couple things. Coming off of a bad game, I'm expecting a big-time bounce back from him. You're taking Michigan or the Ducks?
I'm taking Michigan. Yeah, I am. I'm taking Michigan. Right. I think they're going to get through today, and I'm sure they would love nothing better than to see Purdue on Saturday.
That is true. I'm also taking Michigan, but we will see. Despite being two very wise people, we've been wrong about probably most decisions in our lives. So am I speaking for both of us there?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right, very good. All right, well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, win or lose for the Wolverines. And until then, as always, thanks for watching.